feeling. So that you can what? Have their what? Spirit. So the older you get, you sound more like your mama. The older you get, the what? Why? Because you have embodied their what? Spirit. What you can pass to your children outside of stuff and money, give them your spirit. So your tears are what? They're natural. Secondly, look at your neighbor and say, they are necessary. Not only do you need to cry, you got to. Right? You have to. They're what? They're necessary. You were designed to cry. All right? Now, your tears are designed to cleanse and to clear up stuff. So, you cry now. Anybody ever cried so that your eyes got cloudy? Where you couldn't really see because it was just what? Tears. But what happened? After a while. After you what? After you got it out. You were able to what? See clearly. You couldn't see anything until you what? You got it out. But once you released it, what? It cleared up. I'm through. I'm through for real this time. But as we understand the role of our tears, they're natural and they're what? They're necessary. And I've come to know that shedding tears is a noble thing. That it doesn't make you less than or unequal to. Jesus wept. He wept because he felt. He felt the loss of his what? His friends. And he felt the loss of what his friends were going through. Jesus wept. He also wept as he enters into Jerusalem. He weeps. But he wept because he knew what he was going to have to what? To face. He wept as he was approaching. That's not how story ends. Can I help you? Cry. But that's not the end of your story. Come on, say it with me. That's not the end of the story. It's a point in the story. It is a significant part of the journey, but it is not the totality of your journey. You are not a crybaby. You just have feeling. And if Jesus had feelings, don't you think that it's all right for you to have feelings too? I'll get to the stuff. I got so much here. This is going to be fun. But for those that came in late, there will be a handout. But I want you to take your own notes because this teaching series is about what God is speaking directly to you, not just what I've prepared. The beauty of this is that a lot of what I'm sharing is not here on the paper because I'm in tune with God and God is speaking. So you must take your what? Your own notes. I want to hear from 3 people and then we'll close. Someone who perhaps hasn't spoken tonight. Talk to us. How you feeling? Anything you want to share? Yes. Come on, share with us. Yes.
My husband's mother passed back in January, and he's been having a difficult time. Her birthday was yesterday. So I've always asked him, what's wrong, what's wrong, what's wrong? Are you okay, or are you okay? And he'll say, yeah, I'm fine, yeah, I'm fine. Now, we've been married long enough for me to know, how his reactions and stuff. So I finally found out yesterday that a lot of his grief now is coming from guilt because when she passed, he was in Japan. So now I'm trying to deal with the fact that, that the grief now that he's carrying a lot of is guilt. And he's feeling like, because he wasn't there, he feel like it's something that he could have done to save her. And I have to continue to tell him, that whether he was here or not, if the Lord had called her home, that's what was going to happen. So, he's afraid to basically share his feelings with anybody because that's the way he was raised by his dad. So, it's difficult, me too, being a wife, trying to help him through that situation. And sometimes I don't know what to do. I just sit there and just let him cry it out.
All right. So first thing that you must understand is that you may not necessarily be the one to help him. Okay? What you can do is be present and be there for him, but you may not be the one. Okay? All of us, and that's a natural response. Guilt is a natural part of grief. It's just part of that dying process. Whether he had been here or not, he more than likely would have tried to take on some type of guilt for whatever reason. He's just going to have some time to get through that. What you can do is say to him, I feel you. And you can say, I miss her too. Create an environment where he feels okay. And an environment where he knows that somebody understands what he's going through. So it's not anything you can do. What you can do is to perhaps steer him and talk about the fact that, when Pastor was going through his moments of depression, I didn't immediately go and get help. Didn't know anything about it. I tried to face Goliath by myself. There's nothing worse than facing Goliath with a slingshot and no stones. Okay. You remember Saul tried to give him armor, but that was somebody else's armor. Okay. So while you kind of got to let him navigate through it, but create opportunities where he feels safe to share how he's feeling. And he's sharing, he's just not sharing it at the pace and the rate that you would like him to share, because you shared a whole lot. Y'all understand that? Am I making sense? Now, when someone is grieving, there is no timeline to that. Okay? There's no, you remember those little dials, you say, and it goes ding. There's no timeline for it. In my own grief experiences, and let me say this. First of all, each death is different. Okay? Mama and grandmama were totally different. First of all, I was at different stages in my life. Okay? Different seasons. So, the way I handled mom's death is not how I handled grandma. Okay? Mom's death, I was young and just young. Okay? As I've gotten older, because God has allowed me to come through, you with me? I reached a point where I could celebrate her life, not her death, celebrate her life and understand that even though I'm celebrating her life, I still have moments where I miss her. Okay? That's because I'm allowing myself to feel. What I can't do is allow myself to feel so much that the enemy takes that and twists it and it turns into a knife and he uses it as a weapon to what? To keep me down. I can feel and still fulfill purpose. You can grieve and still take steps forward. Your grief doesn't have to take you all the way back. Okay? You can grieve. It's just that as you're grieving, you may not be taking giant steps. You just, but we're what? We're celebrating any little progress you made, because even if you do that, you are not where you were. Okay? So he's moving. It's just, okay? But the mere fact that you understand, and I talked to him about it, that, and sometimes it's not about changing or fixing it. You just got to reassure him, hey, that doesn't change the love you have for mom. I went through it. I understand it because when my mother passed, I was in North Carolina. She was in Baltimore. I was preparing to go because they told me that her situation had worsened. I was preparing to go, okay? Now, example of what I told you all earlier, the reason I can talk about it and help you tonight is because I've been through it. So God allowed me to go through it so I can what? Help somebody else. It wasn't until later in life that I realized perhaps I couldn't have handled being there, seeing my mother take her last breath. So I have to understand that God is still God, and he knows better than any of us what we can handle. Okay? Doesn't mean that I won't carry the guilt. I just have to get to that next step. So he'll get there. Okay? Why? Because weeping endures for the night. You know, that text doesn't tell you how long the night is, though. But we hang on to what? Joy will come in the morning. He'll get his smile back. he'll get that. But he's got to what? Feel it. Second person. Yes. Hold on, let me, so I can hear you. Yes.
When you was talking about the phrase like feeling stuck or letting them go, so back in like 2020, my grandfather had passed away, and we were really close, but I didn't allow myself to feel that when he passed. I was the strong one, as you said. So within November of that same year, I had too many emotions going on with relationships or things that would happen with my mom. So I got to that point where I exploded. And back in November of 2020, I tried to take my life. But thankfully, God, and it'll make 4 years in this November that I didn't do any, I haven't tried, sorry, I haven't tried to, take that route again. So it'll make 4 years in November. And I thank God because I only came out with a concussion and just a messed up finger. And I think about that a lot because I wouldn't have my child. I wouldn't, went to school. I wouldn't done so many things that I've accomplished now. But I just say, like, sometimes you have to really feel those emotions because I exploded. I allowed myself to get to a point where it was too much to handle all those things at one time. And I was like just talking about this recently, like feel those emotions, take your time. And like it's okay to, it's okay to cry. It's okay to feel those emotions. It's okay to be upset because we are human. So I just thank God for that, and yeah.
I don't know if you all heard, was it 4 years ago? 4 years ago, she tried to take her life because she exploded and did not allow herself to feel. Here's where the grace of God steps in, is that at some point, when I finish the Tears series, at some point I'm going to do one on scars. Because you said you came out with a messed up finger, right? Is the finger still messed up? No. Right. But science would tell us that they can still tell you had the concussion. So it's a scar left so that you will be reminded of what God kept you from. Scars and mercy go together. One more person, then we're going home. All right, I got 1, 2. Okay. All right, Miss Gloria, I'm gonna let you go too, sir. All right, yes.
Well, when my mama died, she was in her 30s, and I was 9 years old. So, like, when I tell this to people, they say, well, don't you miss your mom? And I may be wrong for saying this. I say, by me being 9 years old, I didn't know her. So so this is what I say. I can't miss nothing that I never had. I mean, I knew she was my mom, but I don't grieve. I don't even grieve today. So I don't know. It's because I was young and didn't know her. I don't know. And then while you was up there talking, I wanted to say something. To me, crying is like a medicine. Cause you get locked down, you'll get locked down, and when I cry, I mean a real cry, just like you say, my eyes, my nose, snot, everything, slob, everything, and then when I finish, I feel good.
That's because let's deal with what she said. She was 9 years old. Okay. The developmental mind will only allow you to feel, but so much. Okay. But that child is still inside of you. So you grieved, you just didn't realize, and you probably don't realize at times what or why you're grieving. Right. But it doesn't mean that you didn't. And it's not that you can't grieve what you didn't know or miss. You actually can. Okay. But But and the reason I say this is because you can't negate the fact of what you went through. What I believe and perceive that has happened is that at some point you closed the door to that because somebody in your life made sure that you were okay. Yeah. So, by the grace of God. Yes, yes, sir.
I I was sitting up here thinking that I hadn't cried since 2019, you know, and prior to that it was like 2014, and these were due to deaths of two close relatives, my brother and my nephew, who was murdered. So that was the last time that I actually cried, and I was telling my wife, you know, I feel so ugly when I cry, you know, so it might be a little bit of vanity in that, tied in that too, you know. But I went to see that movie called The Forge, and it was like I was on a roller coaster, you know. I got real emotional in the theater, and I found myself cutting my tears off right when they were forming, you know, so I fear that I might become an expert at cutting off the faucet before it even starts, you know. I was wondering if you could talk about that a little bit.
Well, we do well with wearing masks, and we would prefer to wear a mask than to face the person that's in the mirror. Yes, you have become an expert. What you are doing, though, is bottling up your tears. So at some point, they will come out. I would just encourage you to create safe spaces for you to release. Okay? If you freeze something too much, too long, it will explode. And the damage will be detrimental. You're not built to hold everything inside. You're built to release. We're built and designed to pour out so that God can pour back in. What happened when you were sitting in the movie theater is that you saw the reality of things that have happened in your own personal experience that touched you and you felt it, but you cut it off because you didn't want to feel it, because feeling it is too painful. But I would submit to you that if you allow yourself to feel, that's where the growth comes in. That's where the glory is, in the feeling. You know why we celebrate the cross so much? Because he was wounded. He felt. He was wounded. He was bruised. He was what? Beaten for what? The chastisement of our. Now, in that whole text, there ain't nothing about that pretty. It's all what? Feeling. Okay? On that cross, Jesus cried. He cried out, Elah, Elah lama sabachthani. My God, why have you forsaken me? He cries out. And so crying is not a bad thing. If you get ugly when you cry, just get by yourself and won't nobody know. But have a moment. It's okay. Everyone standing, please. I hope that something's been said to help you. We will look at this a little further next week. And I need everybody here, if you can. This doesn't help if you skip. Okay? You got to, because this is what we had to open it up tonight. Open up the pain, the hurt, the wound, and then we'll get to victory. A lot of times we want to go right to the shout. But you got to have a reason to shout. Okay? So that you can feel. As we did the beginning of this session, I want to close the same way. I want you to thank God for what you've heard, and because it was something for what? For your spirit, for your, okay? Your tears are a release. Doesn't make you weak. It's really just a sign of what God has allowed you to come through. How's your feeling? God, let me feel again. In Jesus' name, amen. Now, if some of you want to give, you can, but you can do so on your way out, or you can put it here. Let's do this because of the nature of what I'm dealing with. I want this to remain sacred space. So if you must talk, please, ma'am, sir, do it beyond the doors so that if somebody just needs a moment, they can have this sacred space. I love you, and God bless you. Amen.